My quintet is composed of piano, guitar 1, guitar 2, acoustic bass, and drums. And we were formed in 2006, very much inspired by performers like Les Paul and Nat King Cole. Nat King Cole had a similar sized group in the 1940s and 50s, using piano as the lead instrument and a guitarist who would play improvisations, parallel lines, melodic figures, riffs, and then backing that up, a rhythm guitarist, much as you might hear in a big band, like the guitarist Freddie Green with Count Basie. And this is sort of the model for our group. It's a great foundation for featuring my arrangements and piano improvisations. At the time we formed the quintet back in 2006, I was in the Les Paul combo, and we had a weekly gig up in New York City. And Les Paul used also the same type of instrumentation, himself on the lead guitar, myself on the piano, and a rhythm guitar. He was a tremendous player and soloist, but he was also a wonderful arranger, and his concept was remarkable. And I used a lot of his ideas for my own albums and arrangements. So that is sort of the basis for the idea of the somewhat unusual instrumentation of the John Colianni Quintet. When I was a small boy, my parents were very music-minded and culturally active, and we were a theater-going family. As I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, we had access to the best of all kinds of entertainment and performing arts. And among the first events I ever attended in a musical sense, probably the greatest thing I've ever witnessed to this day, in fact, was my first exposure to live jazz. Duke Ellington and his orchestra playing at Georgetown University in 1974, the year of Duke's death. And I was a very small boy, and I was gifted with a copy of his brand new autobiography, which is called Music is My Mistress. And I sat there at Georgetown University with my parents, never having seen a big band before, knowing nothing about it, watching this majestic performer and all of his great musicians, sitting there open-mouthed all evening and just soaking it all in. And I was hooked on jazz from that point on. Following that, the family went on a vacation to New Orleans. And this was a time when a lot of the great New Orleans Dixieland and Creole era artists were actually still alive, and there were venues like Heritage Hall and Preservation Hall where I would sit and just absorb their sounds. We stayed down there for about 3 weeks, and without knowing it, I was picking up this ad hoc musical education. I was absorbing all of this authentic music, so hearing this New Orleans music, seeing Duke Ellington, became instantly hooked on the sounds of the earlier eras of jazz. And my parents had a massively wide-ranging recording collection of albums. So I was able to check out the great sounds of all of the big bands. Count Basie, Jimmy Lunceford, Duke Ellington, Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, Benny Goodman. And this basically, this is the foundation of my concept as a musician, pretty much. And along the way, I discovered all the great piano players like Art Tatum, Errol Garner, Earl Hines. Got to see many of these performers play live when they were still with us. A few still are with us from the great era, but not that many in number. And I feel very fortunate having grown up at a time when you could still see performers like these that I'm mentioning. So this would account, I think, for the range of my musical tastes. When I formed my quintet, by happy coincidence, two of the members of the quintet, my bassist, young Robert Wagner, and my guitarist, my lead guitarist, Justin Lees, like myself, grew up in the D.C. metro area, suburban Washington, D.C. And my guitarist, Justin Lees, had recorded for Patuxent in various sideman situations. And he recommended the label to me, and I believe he recommended me to the label chief, Tom Minty. And after email introductions and talks on the phone, we worked out the details for recording the first album, which went very well. It was called Johnny Chops, which we recorded back in 2007 in a 2-day session. And we also recorded another album on Target, which has been very favorably reviewed, and very proud of both releases. In any case, in between these two releases, I also recorded with a very prominent guitarist who I work with a lot, Larry Coryell. Larry Coryell recorded his Montgomery Suite, which is quite an epic musical piece. And I was very privileged to be in his trio for that release. Following that, we just recorded another album, which should be released quite soon, and very happy and excited about that. So my affiliation with Patuxent is special, not only because it's a great place to record, and they have such marvelous recording facilities and such great expertise in the craft of engineering and post-production and musical awareness, but it's also on my home grounds. It's near my original stomping grounds, so it's a really terrific label, and I'm very happy and proud to be one of their artists.
Sweet Sue, just you. Sweet Sue, just